we will start our next session. So this is perspective from an owner's point of view. Debbie Gilders happily agreed to join us, talk through her experiences of bringing an empty property bought at auction back into use. Without more ado, Debbie, over to you.
Okay. Thanks, Tony. Yeah, Debbie, and this first slide is just a picture of me. I think that was taken on the 25th of March last year, just not long after I had got the actual keys for this property. And yeah, a sort of slight look of dismay on my face, and wondering, what on earth have I done? And just to let you know what I had done, I'd actually seen this property advertised at auction, and I'd gone along. It was the first time I'd bought a property at auction, the only time actually. So yeah, lot number 8 for some reason took my attention, and as I look at this picture now, I wonder what on earth it was. I quite like the old wall and the trees, and I guess I felt the property had some potential. And you know, there's something about empty properties which is pull on my heartstrings or something. It looks like a family home, which is just, you know, obviously not housing a family at the moment. And it's right opposite a primary school. So it seemed to be a decent prospect. So I went along to the auction and, you know, nervously bought it. I'd never seen inside the property. It was deemed unsafe. And I have to say, you know, purchasing at auction, it all happens very quickly. So I had just 2 weeks, fortunately, of nightmares, wondering what on earth I'd bought. And actually, it wasn't as bad as I was imagining, but as you can see, it was pretty bad. So there was debris everywhere. Every window had been broken. Holes had been kicked in the walls. There's this picture on the top left is actually inside the garage. So the previous owners had left a load of stuff there. The property had actually, you know, I found out recently, been empty for since September 2014. So there had been, you know, it'd been empty for a while. Vandals had got in, and obviously the previous owner had left a lot of stuff there, but you know, vandals had got in. They'd set fires. The black stuff on the wall there, not the moldy walls, the other one is actually black plastic where they've set a fire just at the corner of the patio doors there, and that's kind of burnt plastic stuck to the wall, which, you know, took a few coats of paint, I can tell you. You can see that some of the ceilings had come in. There were holes in the roof. There were birds nesting in the roof. That one on the bottom right is actually where I'm sitting just now. Okay, so that became my office. I think we talked about yesterday, you know, how good it is to have a space to work from. Since we're all working from home, and you know, that was nice too. I'm certainly enjoying having that space. Sorry. So this was actually after my daughter and I had been in and cleared a lot of the debris. So things are beginning to look better, believe it or not. The property had 3 bathrooms, a main bathroom, a cloakroom, and an ensuite. 4 bedrooms, a lounge, a kitchen and dining room. So it was a really decent sized property. I guess my original idea was to renovate and sell it on, but since I got the keys on the 25th of March, just 2 days after lockdown was announced, my income, the place where I was working just closed its doors, and since I'm self-employed, that meant I lost my main income. So the budget I had for the renovation, I was actually living on as well. So yeah, plans change, but we adapt. So yeah, one of the issues I had was getting windows fitted. The first job was getting the holes in the roof fixed, and I could do that because the roofer, could do emergency work. So he came and he fixed the holes in the roof. He couldn't do any of the aesthetic bits like gutters and fascias and things, but he fixed the holes in the roof. And then I started painting. Um, we obviously hired a skip, and that was quite good because the skip guy knew the roofer, and the roofer recommended a joiner. So the joiner came in and fixed the walls and ceilings. I had my own plumber that I'd used before. So you can see in this picture in the right, some of the floorboards are up. He's started to put in some central heating at this stage, and the electrician has been in, and it was a bit of a struggle getting power into the house. I remember a very frustrating day of being pinged back and forth between EDF and Scottish Power, the network supplier. Uh, just nobody wanted to take responsibility, and it was locked down. Nobody was sure whether anybody could come out. It was a little bit of a challenge, let's say. But, as you can see, even the window manufacturers were closed down. So even without windows, we managed to get power eventually. We couldn't get gas because it wasn't deemed a necessity or a crisis because nobody was living in the property. So we worked away, and it's amazing the difference a coat of paint actually makes. And then, come July, actually, I was kind of running out of money, but I'd already budgeted for the windows. So we had some windows. We had a room with a view now, and the place started to sort of take shape. It was around July that I actually got in touch with the Empty Homes Advice Service. As I say, I was running out of funds. So I just wondered what was available. Unfortunately, because by that point I'd decided to move into the property, none of the kind of loan schemes were available. And because the work was too far on, the VAT scheme wasn't really of use either. But what I will say, I'm really glad I did get in touch with the Empty Homes Advice. I spoke to Justine Dunbar, and she put me in touch with the local Empty Homes officer, Karen Ray. And really, both of them have been very supportive in their encouragement and just, this occasional check-ins. It's kind of kept me going on not on a financial level, but on an emotional level, I guess. It was around July when the property market reopened in Scotland. So the house that I was living in, which was jointly owned by myself and my ex-partner, we put that on the market. And actually, it went to a closing date within a week. The market was ferocious, and it still is to an extent. It's very, very kind of buoyant. So we sold the joint property, and that sort of gave me funds again to sort of keep going with this one. Yeah, these, the windows in the kitchen living area, we could see the garden, which was nice. And this is just kind of the stages of the kitchen, going from the bottom left there where, we'd cleared out a lot of the debris. Eventually we took out these remaining kind of appliances and whatnot, just getting the place painted and some lights in. then once we had the windows in, we could actually put the kitchen units in, which, you know, the place really began to feel like it was actually going to be inhabitable. And then, you know, we're now at the stage where we're beginning to clutter it up again. So since we're now living in the property, it's a lovely kitchen to work in. You know, it's really nice to start from zero. You can decide what you want and where you want it, and that was really nice. That's the other end of this room, just to show you again the sort of before and after. And really, you know, it didn't take that much. Clearing it up, painting it, you know, a bit of power. This was the main bathroom. So this was the work we had done before we moved in. Obviously, we had to put in a new bathroom suite and paint that up. We changed the layout slightly, so we managed to fit in a bidet. We managed to get a couple of the bedrooms ready and carpeted to allow us to move in. And the office, of course. That was another essential. So this is some of the work we've done since we kind of got here. We turned the downstairs cloakroom into a utility room and then put a new cloakroom under the stairs. So we did alter a little bit the layout of the house, but you know, that was about it really. And you know, the last room that we finished was this ensuite bedroom, which my daughter now lives in. You know, I don't know if you remember the sort of pictures from before. This is a kind of how it was. So yeah, it has been a bit of a transformation, really. And finally, I think this was about September, we put the decking in. You can see on the down on the right hand side, the old decking was really rotten. I'd fallen through it once, and the joiner did as well. So we decided we better replace that before there was any serious accidents. The tree that you can see there was actually kind of grown right over that window, so we had to kind of hack that down as well. And then in November we got some slabs laid. So there's still quite a lot of work to be done on the property. The garden, for sure, needs to be completed, and you know, there's the odd skirting missing here and there. I guess, you know, moving into the property was maybe not the best plan. Because I have quite a high tolerance for the unfinished, I suppose. So, yeah, that was the timeline, I guess. I suppose one of the other things that I'd really like to kind of comment on was, you know, something that Janet and Kelly mentioned earlier, you know, was the problems of the empty homes. So, as you probably noticed from the pictures, this is actually a semi-detached house, and the neighbours moved into the other side 2 or 3 years ago, and so they were living next to an empty home, which you know, the neighbours, the wife next door is really frightened, she said, because they were hearing all sorts of stuff going on in here, people breaking in, people in the garden. Their house has actually, you know, got full security cameras and big sort of security shutters as well, because for 2 or 3 years they were living next to this property. They were very glad to see somebody moving in and taking over. And actually, you know, people in the community as well, as I've been, you know, outside clearing some of the front garden also, people have been passing, people stop, they're really pleased to see somebody living in the property again. The history of the property has been told to me by the people passing the gate, and yeah, I think that's probably me. I don't know if you've got any questions, Tony, or anybody
I
else.
think the plan was that you and I would have a little bit of a backwards and forwards conversation around just what that experience was like. I'm conscious that we have with 3 minutes left. The session's going to run to 11:45. The one thing that jumped out at me was one of the earlier things you said about a bird nesting. Now, was it a bird's nest or a bird nesting? And if you've got a sitting bird, what do you do with it?
I don't know.
The answer is you can't touch it. It's a criminal offence to disturb nesting birds, which is where I'm going with that. And folk just need to understand that, annoying as it is, if you've got a bird nesting in your empty property, it's time to, like bats, you have to walk away and leave them until they've left. Just a couple of things then I was going to pick up on. One was you mentioned some of the issues with utilities and the voids, and everybody who works in the construction sector will be familiar with that. So really just biggest barriers, and then what's the biggest lesson that you would want to give to somebody who's following behind you with an empty home?
Well, I noticed David Claire's asking a question there as well about grants and things like that. I guess my biggest advice would be get in touch with the empty homes officer at the start of the project rather than halfway through. So I wasn't eligible for any of the grants because I was moving into the property. They seem to be a little bit focused on the property developer. There's money there if you're taking on an empty property and doing it up to rent it out, but not if you're taking it on to live in, which I feel is a bit of a area which could be looked at and would be helpful.
I mean, that's obviously exactly the right answer. Is to an empty homes conference is first thing to do is speak to the empty homes officer. And just a little bit about the barriers. I mean, you mentioned the utility companies, and everybody has problems with them. I'm disappointed to hear that even in the kind of late spring of last year, early summer, Scottish Gas still hadn't twigged that empty homes was absolutely a priority. This is an argument we were having with government very early on, because if nobody can move, then it gives local authorities a real problem around homelessness. But just other barriers that you came across, things that you weren't expecting, but you had to work your way around.
Yeah, well, we managed to get the electricity fixed eventually, but the gas couldn't go in until we moved in. And that meant, we had no heating to dry the property out. And we couldn't put dehumidifiers in because we had no windows, you know what I mean? So it would be pointless. So, yeah, I'm now discovering as the building dries out more, a few cracks and a bit, I need to go around and sort of repaint things and fill in a few holes. So, yeah, and another thing, I guess, sort of COVID as well. We were lucky because the property was empty. People could actually come in and work in it. But there were some shortages. The plaster had to go and queue up at B&Q, at some ridiculous hour in the morning in the hope to get some plaster. But yeah, I guess you take on something like this, you kind of go with it. You just have to find a solution around the issues that do come up.
It's every day is a school day, and it's unquestionably any kind of that kind of work is always a bit of a learning process. What would I was going to say a bit bizarre that Scottish Gas or Scottish Gas Networks should tell you that they can't install a supply if there's nobody in it. I've got 2 houses next door to me that had new gas supplies put in the last month, so they're still empty, so they can do it if they want to.
Well, I think that was particularly because it was, during lockdown. It was a COVID thing.
And these supplies were done during lockdown, during a COVID thing. But there you go. So what would you do differently? Just one last one before we move on to the next session. What would you do differently?
Yeah, as I say, contact the empty homes officer quicker, okay, at the start. I know it's a learning process. This is the first one. It would be good to see the property before moving into it, but I guess that's not always possible. And at the end of the day, it's turned out okay. It's been hard work, but we've got there. So, and don't move in. I think moving into the property, one, it slows the process down for me anyway, and two, it means you're not eligible for a lot of the grants and loans that you might
be. There's two useful pieces of advice there. Just one last one. So we have a question there about what made you think of the empty home service in the first place, and would you do it again? Would you do another empty?
I definitely would. I'm kind of desperately thinking how to take the next project on with lots of enthusiasm, a few good workmen now. So I've got a good team, but no funds. Okay. If anyone's got any of the ideas, I'm open to
But
them.
were you signposted to the empty home? Did somebody say to you, "Why don't you go and speak to?" I mean, or did you just come?
I'd just come across it in, I think it was maybe a sort of property networking kind of thing. Somebody mentioned empty homes officer. I Googled it.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
came.
that's really useful.
And, actually, Tony, a lot of people, when I say, tell people I'm sort of taking part in this empty homes conference,
Yeah.
people say, "What? Empty homes
Yeah.
officer?" So you're not out there
I think
enough.
that's absolutely true. It is a bit of a niche activity, but that's why we have Shahina to do the promotional work of the Empty Homes Partnership to try and bring the whole activity more to the notice of those folk who need the assistance. So we're a little bit over time, but I think we've done that deliberately. Thank you, Deborah. Really, really useful, really interesting sharing your experience, and it's I'm sure there's much in there that is useful and is common to other owners trying to bring properties back into use. The next session I have in my on my sheet is John Blackwood from the the landlords. I forget what they're called now. Sheena's going to tell me when she turns her microphone on, because I turned you off, Sheena, earlier on. So,
have you turned me back on?
Yep, you are now.
Okay, Scottish Association of Landlords.
There we go. So
Blackwood will be doing the next session, but I'll let you do that, Tony. Thank you to Debbie as well. And it's been so good to have that owner perspective, and it's something that we, as a Scottish Empty Homes Partnership, have been trying to do, because we can't put up solutions for owners really, and it's owners that have got to come to us. So yeah, thank you.